Hey, Saber, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I am good. Thanks so much for coming on. Saber is a good friend of mine. He's mentored me, and we've switched and bounced ideas off of each other. And he's a great guy. So, tell everybody who you are and what you're all about.
Who I am, that's a big question. Generally, one of my, one of my clients, when we talk about these things, and I ask them, tell me about you and who you are, and they generally tell me what they do in life and their jobs and everything like that. And my response to them always is not about what you do, it's who you are. That's what I'm asking. So I'm not sure if you're asking me who I am or what I do.
Tell everybody what you spend most of your time doing and what you try to accomplish.
Okay, good. Clarity is a big deal for us at what we do.
Clarity is power, right?
Absolutely. So what do I do? I'm a peak performance coach. I spend most of my time working with athletes and peak performance CEOs and their executive teams, of course. The goal of what I do is most or all of my clients are type A people, and they have type A personality, and they want to be on their top of the game every single time. They want it to be on demand. They want it to be something that happens when they need it. It's not something that happens by chance, and it happens. That's what I do. So that's what I do on a daily basis, every day, all day.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I've seen you talk about you helping people regain control that they've lost, whether it's a CEO, whether it's an athlete and at the free throw line that has to hit free throws. And it's common for high performers to lose control right before they need it, right? Like that second before it's crucial that they show up, something happens that causes them to lose that composure, lose that control, lose that confidence. Talk to me a little bit about why they lose that control and how do they get it back?
Well, why do they lose it? It can go back to many things depending on the person. And as you and I talked before, or when I talked about it in other venues, it's not what you do, it's who you are. So my athletes or my CEOs, when we talk, it's not necessarily the same exact thing that repeats itself with everyone because people are different and everyone is unique. But if we talk about generally speaking, what happens before that specific moment is their mindset, is what they talk to themselves about, what they tell themselves, how they convince themselves of how ready they are and how good they are for what they are about to do, and how well they're prepared and how well they're going to ace it. And generally speaking, that happens to everybody almost, regardless if they're peak performers or not peak performers, athletes or executives, doesn't matter.
Everybody, yeah.
Everybody. We all get to moments where we're about to do something and there's a discord, there's a conversation that happens internally, just a few seconds, maybe a few moments before just that moment.
Consciously or unconsciously, right?
Absolutely, just happens. It just happens. And the reason I say just happens, by the way, I'm just making it as simple as possible. Just happens for the non-trained mind. Just happens. For the trained mind, they know it happens and they're prepared for it. And when it happens, they know what to do exactly so they can overcome it. So that, in a nutshell, comes to a confidence or assertiveness matter. So that's generally where the conversation happens. Am I ready? Am I good for it? What makes me sure that I actually can make it happen? Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that we all have voices inside of our head. Sometimes it's conscious voices and sometimes it's unconscious voices that come up and start to tell ourselves or make us doubt ourselves and sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes it's a confident person who has voices inside their head that tell them that they're confident, and that leads them up to a moment where it makes them feel ready. So how does somebody, I want to say, maximize their ability to be able to have these voices come up in a positive way and a reinforcing way that will allow them to perform at their best?
I like your question, and I'd like to make a little distinction just to make sure that I'm answering the question properly. Sure. I'm big on the clarity.
Good.
The voices happen regardless.
Okay.
The voices will happen. Why do they happen? Because we are conditioned by the system we grow up with to pay attention to what is different. There are certain organs in the brain that tell us, okay, this is a different area. You're going there. Are you sure you want to go there? That the amygdala, its main function is to protect us from whatever is uncomfortable, to make sure that we're not going to a place where it can either embarrass us or cause us harm, whatever it is. So those signals happen naturally. What I talked about earlier, the trained mind knows that these signals will be sent. And over time, they can predict when those signals will be sent. Because anytime we do something outside of our comfort zone, those signals will be sent. If I'm training every day for the local championship and I have games every week, then toward the end of the year or the season, I have the cup or the final. That's outside of my comfort zone. I'm going to have that conversation with myself.
Right.
If I have a derby, I'm playing with a rivalry next week, I am going to have a conversation. If I'm playing the World Cup, I am going to have a conversation because I don't play the World Cup every day. Mm-hmm. So every time we're going out of my comfort zone, I am going to have that conversation naturally. The trained mind knows that conversation is natural, and they prepare themselves before that conversation. So when it happens, they know the answers to the conversation. And as you and I know, a lot of that goes back to spotting what energy we're in. So what we do, and where's our energy? Are we really filled of energy that is boosting, that is empowering, or are we filled with energy that is draining and that's taking us back? Right. The reason I talk about energy, because it's not the physical energy, is actually the entire body energy, including the mind, the soul, and the body itself. How do we go about it specifically? Is that what you want me to talk about?
I think more importantly is, how does somebody train their mind to, or like the way you said, trained mind, how does somebody attain a trained mind? How do you get to that point where your mind is trained to be able to tell itself the right things and not the things that will dent and stunt their ability to perform?
Okay. First of all is knowing what those come from. Okay. So as I use a simple formula with my clients, we have the energy of performance. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you want me to use my board or not, but we have the energy of performance as the natural energy minus the energy of gap. The gap is what creates all that talk. So if we understand where that gap comes from, we understand how to monitor and control our energy, which is EP, the natural energy. The energy of gap is dominated by 5 areas. The way we think about it, the way we believe in our performance, the way we feel about our performance, the way we think of our environment, that includes the people around us, and how I feel about my preparedness physically. Am I up for it? Do I have my muscles with me? Did I train properly or not? All of those 5 domains impact that energy of gap. So if you go back to that formula, EP equals EN minus EG.
I know this is a math class.
Well, I wanted to make it as simple as possible. So if you think about it, and I can put it here, if this is your energy of performance, then you have your natural energy and your energy of gap. If the energy of gap is 0, your energy of performance equals your energy, your natural energy, okay, which is how you're aligned with yourself, you're properly positioned, your muscle is with you, your mind is with you, your feelings, your belief, and everybody around you are helping you. So your performance will be 100% because that's your natural energy. As soon as the energy of gap starts showing up, anything in your social environment, anything in your field, it's rainy and the field is not good, anything about your belief about yourself, anything about your body, anything about your feelings, anything starts showing up, you're going to have that energy, EN, minus the gap. And that's going to detract from your performance. So that's where we start first. We start understanding where my performance start and how does it get detracted from it? How does it go down? Once we understand these things, we start monitoring which one is taking precedence compared to everything else. People have what we call the elite system. Elite system is they access their information and they access the way they perform in a certain pattern. That's why I said earlier, it's unique for every person. For example, if I asked you now and I said, can you tell me about the last time you performed 100%? You'll go ahead.
Yeah, I would say I can't tell you I can't tell you the last time, but I could tell you a time that stands out in my memory.
Very good.
Okay.
So what you just did right now, you had indicators in your body that shows me how you actually process the data, where you went in your mind to retrieve the data so you can process it and tell me what it is. So when I asked you that question, you already had images in your mind,
Right?
Right?
Right.
And the way you were processing that image tells me how you process your information. And if I keep asking you too many more questions in the same area, it tells me over time how you normally access and retrieve that information and how you process it.
Okay.
That is unique to you.
Right.
That helps me help you understand better what gets out of your performance so we can zoom on that, change it completely, take it away, and at a certain time, boost it so it can take your performance up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Okay. Where did I lose you? I want to make sure that I explain it.
So you're saying that you can see based on my facial expressions or from the way I'm thinking where it's coming from?
See what you just said. You said, if you can see the way I'm thinking. That tells me you're a visual person.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So this is something that I think both of us have learned, which is deeply rooted in NLP, which is that there's different ways people process information. Some people are more dominant in their sense. Some people are more dominant in their visuality, the way they visualize things. Some people are more dominant in the way they taste things. So that's why, and everybody knows that a blind person has a much better sense of hearing because they're using those senses. They start to be strengthened in other places where the other ones are deficient, right?
Absolutely, so, yes.
And like you said, when I said see, it means I'm more of a visual person, which I am. You're 100% right. And when I try to describe something to somebody, I will use the visual type of vocabulary, right? I'll say, oh, I see what you're saying, or oh, I see where he's going with this, right? And I'm always going to use that visual type where some people might say, I hear what you're saying, right? That's more of an audio type of understanding, right?
Exactly. So that's when you spoke, right? But before you spoke earlier, when I asked you to imagine or tell me when was the last time you performed 100%, your eyes went left up.
Right.
That's IQ.
Right.
The IQ, those access, and that's how you access your information. Then you listen to it. Then you look to the left and the side. So that's how you access your information. So now you said you're a visual person. If I ask you 3 or 5 more questions, you probably will access the information the same exact way. You either say that way or you move your eyes the same exact way. Now I know you're a visual person. Now we take the things that detract from your performance. Let's say the way you believe about your readiness. Okay? And we focus on how you see it, how you visualize it, how it impacts you, and we switch it around to make it how you see it in a positive way. Does it make sense?
Yes, beautifully.
Okay.
So, wow, that's interesting. And then, so how would you do that if, let's say I'm visual? Do you find that more people are visual than other types?
It depends. As I told you, I mean, generally speaking, that's what I thought personally. Years ago, that's what I thought. Most people are visual. But the more you work with people and the more you pay attention to their cues, it's really no rule. It's really no rule. A lot of times you find, as I said, a leading system where they start with. That doesn't mean that's exactly how everybody is, because some people have leading systems. Every time they have to look to see something before they answer it, regardless if it's a smell or a conversation, whatever it is, they have to see it first.
Right.
Other people don't have that. Other people, if I asked you, can you tell me about the last poem you heard? You just did. You just looked. So you imagine that. Other people know, they just go and hear it. So it depends on the person. It tends to be kind of more visual for people, but it's dangerous for me to make that assumption about my clients.
It's dangerous for anybody to assume anything, right?
Right.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. So going back to the gap and the energy. So basically, we all start at 100% energy, right? And then as these things start to, as this junk comes in, that's not helpful to our performance, these five influencers start to come in. That's what separates the gap. That's what separates our ability to perform from the actual performance, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, good. That was just to clarify for the listeners and to the viewers. Awesome. Okay, so talk to me about failure. I know we've talked about this before, and talk to me how important you feel it is, and a little bit about what you think about it.
You know, that's interesting. I was doing my workout yesterday in the morning, and the first thing that came to my mind was years ago, and for a long time, I used to call failure. Now I find myself not using the word at all, because to me it kind of doesn't exist. Because there's no such a thing. You don't fail at something. You try something, you work it, you learn from it, and just to go on. If you keep thinking you're failing, then automatically in your mind, you just told your unconscious mind that there was something negative happened. So that's one of the things I talk to my clients about. There's no such a thing as failure. But if we are to use that word, failure.
Wait, let's reframe it. Let's reframe the word. What would you use?
Experience.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. If we were to use that experience, to me, and I think I wrote about it in the 4th chapter, I think, of my book, the one I published in 2015. It's your best friend. Literally, it's your best friend. No one in the world, no one in this universe will teach you as much as experience. Failure would teach you. No one. And it does it for free. It does it for free, at least the first time.
Right.
The second time is not quite free, but for the first time it does for free. And the more you try, the more you go for things, the more it teaches you. That's why I find myself these years, I don't use the word failure at all, because you cannot fail. You cannot fail. You keep doing it, you keep learning. Even if you do the same thing over and over again and you don't get the result you would like to get, every single time you learn something. Granted, the price may be higher because you keep repeating the same thing, but there's no doubt that you will learn something every single time, no doubt. And I challenge anyone to tell me otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think in a perfect world and in a fear-free world, there's a world where people are just constantly doing things that will give them that experience, and let's call it, in quotations, fail as much as they can, just to get their to succeed at whatever they want to succeed at, right? So they'll go and get that job interview even though they're afraid, just so they can either get the job interview or learn from it and get the experience that they need to get to the next thing. But I think in the world that we live in, like you mentioned earlier, this part of the brain, the amygdala in the front of our brain, is shying us and shielding us from pain, harm, embarrassment. How does somebody jump? And really, I believe that the difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is the action that they take, right? When you go to a seminar, the reason the person in the front of the room is there is because he's done something a lot more emphatically and passionately, and he actually took action to get to the front of the room, and that's why you're sitting and he's standing, right? So how does somebody bridge that gap and say, okay, I know failure is important or experience is important. How do I get out of myself and say, I'm not going to be afraid? And I know fear is a huge part of what it takes to be successful, or even to perform at your best, and all these different things that it takes to really be great. How does somebody do that?
Do you know what fear is?
There's a lot of different acronyms.
Okay, we're not going to use an acronym. Let's go with the experience of fear itself.
Okay.
In my understanding, I define fear as something you don't know.
Okay.
There's no way you can fear something you know.
Right.
Think about it. Can you fear your car?
That shakes us.
Right. Can you fear your car? Can you fear your parents? Can you fear your spouse, your girlfriend? Can you fear somebody you know? Can you fear your job? There's no way you can fear something you already know. Okay. You may fear the response of your spouse to a something because you don't know the answer to that.
Right.
Right?
Like the first thing that came to my mind when you said that is a child, even though he might know his principal, a student might know his principal, he's still afraid of the principal because he doesn't know what the principal might do to him or what the punishment might be, right? It's that uncertainty that comes up in his mind.
Good. If that student or that child goes to school and he knows or she knows that there's nothing special about that day, they're just going to go in, they're going to say good morning, go to class. Will they have a fear?
Of course not.
Feeling at all? They don't, because there's no necessity for an answer to something that that child doesn't know.
Mm-hmm.
So when you talk about interview or in the athletic world, a game, or in the business world for an executive, the fear is about that thing that we don't know. Or when you talk about the job, you don't know the outcome of the interview. You don't know the person that you're going to talk to. You don't know what they're going to talk to you about. So as long as you don't know, that's where the fear comes into place.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why is that a challenge? Because I don't want to say a problem. That's a challenge because instead of focusing on what we know, we focus on what we don't know. Okay, so let's switch it. If you focus on what we know about that interview, what do I know about that interview? I know what I know, who I am, what I can do, how experienced I am in my field, the good way I can answer questions, my communication and how I can present myself, and how in need I am of that job. Now, this last one makes a lot of difference. If I am desperate for the job, that will create anxiety and fear, kind of feeling of stress, and that can overcome everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If I'm not, and you understand the energy of need. When we have need of anything, our energy takes a dive, and we cannot really focus because it takes over our mind and mental preparedness.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, if I focus more on what I know I reviewed the company. I understand what the company does. I understand what they're looking for. If I have information on the person who's going to interview me, that's great. If I don't, what would it matter? I know that he's another human being. I know that he has a mind like I do. I know that I can't think the same way he can think. Not the same way, meaning in the pattern, but he can think and I can't think, or she can think and I can't think. And all what I know in the end is I am capable of answering anything they ask about. And if I don't know, I'll say I don't know. And I can find out for you. So the more we focus on what I know and what I can do, that will empower me more before the interview versus I don't know them. I don't know they can ask me. I don't know if they're going to hire me. I don't even know if I'm good enough for it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's basically thinking about what you can control, which causes the fear and anxiety, which is what dents and disallows you from performing at your best, versus focusing on what you can control and focusing on what you do know and focusing on what you do believe about yourself to be true and positive is what leads to the opposite, which is positive performance and ultimately, hopefully getting that job, right?
Absolutely. And if, I don't know if we talked about this before, but at any time, if I have a speech or presentation or a workshop or anything, the one thing I ask people, and probably we'll talk about at a certain point in this session, what are the things you can control in life, really? How many things you can control on life, really? And I ask people just to take a sheet and just start. And people go to town with a long list to end up with two things, actually. Two things. You can control only two things. And to anybody who's listening now, please, you can control only two things, yourself and the moment. There's nothing else you can control. You cannot control your children, you cannot control your spouse, you cannot control the next minute because you're not there, and you cannot control the minute before because it's gone. So you can control only two things, yourself and the moment. So thinking about the person who's going to interview you, thinking about the company, thinking about transportation, thinking about the questions that are not in front of you, you have no control of those things. Why would you waste your effort? Why would you waste your energy? Why would you waste your mind on something that you don't have any control on? If you used all that energy and your mind power on what you actually can control, which is yourself and the moment, imagine what you can do.
Yeah. And I think in the moment, right? The moment is the time, is the period of time. But in the moment, the two things that you as the person can control is your attitude and the choices you make, right? You can't control what someone else does to you, but you can control how you react to it, and you can control the choice you make and the results from that, right?
Absolutely. And actually, you reminded me of a saying Jim Rohn used to say. One of the great people I wish that I would have met, but I was not lucky enough. He says, if you don't have a plan for yourself, somebody else does. And
I
guess
love that.
what? And guess what? It's not for you. So anybody else, you don't have a plan for yourself, definitely there's somebody else who would have a plan for you. And that plan is not for you. It's not to serve you. It's to serve them.
Right.
So before you go to that interview, have a plan for yourself. Right. And if you think about it, I mean, I'm not trying to be facetious here, but if you think about anything in life, if you don't have a plan for your afternoon and somebody calls you, they called you because they have a plan. And you're going to follow that plan. Yes, and you're going to follow that plan.
Right, right. Yeah, absolutely. That's funny. And that's funny because at the end, we're going to do I'm going to throw a couple questions at you, but I guess that answers, if there's one person you could have lunch with, who would it be? Would that be?
Oh, there are many people actually. So you're welcome to. Am I supposed to answer it now or later?
We'll ask it in a minute and we'll see what you say on that.
Okay.
Yeah, good. So, yeah, and we just briefly, we talked about the moment, but tell me more about, because I know when it comes to performing at your best, and I always tell people whenever they ask me what I do, I say, yeah, high performance coach. I work with athletes, CEOs, stock traders, but I say that we all have moments in our life that we have to perform at our best, right? You could be an athlete at the free throw line in the championship game, but also somebody that's a mother, that's has to go have a talk with somebody. That's you showing up and being 100% in that moment. So I tell people that's what I do. But talk to me about how important that moment. You talked about just now that the only two things you could control is yourself in the moment. Talk to me about peak performance and being in the moment and how to handle
that. It's quite interesting because the moment changes.
Every second.
Every second. So, and it depends on how you define the moment. So, for example, the example you pick, the interview. Mm-hmm. The interview itself is a moment. And within that moment, you live other moments. So when they ask you a question and you responded to it, if you're not living the moment of the question and you're thinking of the answer you gave for the question before, you lost that moment. Right? So the easiest way I find to personally and for my clients to live in the moment is to actually think about what is happening right now. You will find your mind wondering and thinking about what happened before and what's going to happen. You will find that happening. That's natural. That's because the power of the brain cannot slow down enough for us so we can just go that slow. We train ourselves to slow down. And there are many ways to train ourselves to slow down. There's meditation, there's visualization. Exercising alone helps with that. One of the exercises I give to especially my athletes and my executives who are actually athletes. One of the examples is when you go for your workout today. We're not talking about, for example, for soccer, we're not talking about the practice or the drill that they do on the pitch. We're talking about when they warm up, for example. Focus on one thing in your memory as you're jogging and count the numbers and you see them. 1, 2, 3, 4. You just see the numbers. You can tell after seconds, 10 seconds at most, how slow your brain is and how much you can pay attention to everything around you. You start seeing the trees, you start seeing the colors on the shirts of your buddies that you did not pay attention to. You start seeing how crooked the number is, and you slow your mind so you can pick and choose what you're going to focus on. And you're going to focus on the moment. So when you ask me, if you're interviewing me and you ask me a question and I find myself thinking about what I just told you a minute ago, I can automatically bring myself in because I know I'm not in here. So I need to get back in here. So that's one of the first clues. If you're thinking about something that past or something that's ahead of you, you're not in the moment. Get back.
Right.
Make sense?
Yep. Good. Excellent. Good stuff. Good. So now with the, I'm going to throw some questions at you and
sure.
You'll give me some answers back. Let's go back. Tell me if there's one person you could have lunch with that ever existed in the history of the universe, who would it be?
That ever existed in the history of the universe. That's big, man. That's
a lot of people, I know.
Yeah. I'd love to have lunch with Jack Canfield.
Okay, and for those who don't know who that is, tell us about who he is real quick.
Jack Canfield is, I'm happy to know, I'm happy to say that I learned from him quite a bit, and he was one of my mentors. I never had a lunch with him. He's the author of The Success Principles and The Chicken Soup for the Soul. Hundreds of millions of copies sold worldwide and translated to many languages.
Nice. That's good. Your favorite book or movie? Can't be your own.
No, it cannot. I would never pick that.
Even though it's good, right?
I'm quite critical of myself. So
good.
Yeah, I'm quite critical of myself. So if anybody tells me that, oh, I love your book, my first question is, what did you like about it? Because if I gotta know what you liked about it, otherwise it's not that good. So
right. And what you didn't like too, so you can fix it, right?
Oh yeah, of course. Oh, feedback. I love feedback.
Yeah, it's good.
Oh yeah, I strive on feedback. Otherwise, I will never do better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so favorite movie, Gladiator.
Good one.
I know.
Favorite book?
Favorite book, The Success Principles.
Okay, nice. And we're gonna add all these in the show notes for those that want to check that out. Your role model?
My role model, my grandfather.
Nice. Why is that?
To me, he is the most fascinating man I've known. I learned quite a bit from him growing up, although I did not spend enough time with him. And just to me, he got older quick, and then he passed. I was young, and I didn't have enough time with him. But for the years that I spent with him, I think he gave me the foundation of what I have today.
Right. Yeah. And I think there's never, no matter how much time you spend with someone, it's never enough, right?
Yeah.
The people that you love, there's unlimited amount of time that you could have spent that you wish you did, right?
Oh yeah, and actually, as my uncles tell me, they told me you did not have the time with him that we would have loved for you to have with him, when he was younger and stronger, and
right.
But I had from him what I had from him, and I think
he still taught you a lot, right?
Exactly. Oh yeah, and it was meant for me, and there was a reason why I was there for that time, not before, not after.
Right.
And I'm always grateful for what I learned from.
Awesome. If you can send one message to the entire world, what would it be? That question usually gets people thinking.
Of course, it's one message to the entire world.
Yeah,
that's big, and I care quite a bit about it. I think I will repeat what I said earlier. You can control your life only two things: yourself and the moment.
Awesome. Yeah, that's good. What does success mean to you? Oh
wow, that probably will keep me thinking more than the question. What does success mean to me? Truly, and far away from any cliches, to actually be able to help the large number of people on all levels, financially, emotionally, spiritually, that I would love to help before I depart the world.
Mm-hmm. And how would you judge that?
I would judge that by the number and the impact that I will have with people. How many people I have contacted and impacted, and the depth of how much they took that and they changed their lives.
Awesome. Sounds like you have your work cut out for you now.
It's been.
Yeah, it's a lifetime. That's a lifetime dream and a lifetime work ethic, right?
It's wonderful, and I would never choose anything besides it.
Good, because that leads into the next question. If you could start all over again, what would you do different? And I know this question gets a lot of people like, no, I'm for somebody that doesn't regret anything that I ever did, and I'm happy and I would never change anything. But if you had to change something, or if you could follow a different path or something, what would it be?
Literally, I was asked this question 2 days ago.
You should have an answer.
Yeah, seriously. And I asked myself actually that question. And again, far away from cliches, I would never change anything for one reason, because every single bit of it made me who I am. Yeah. So if I changed it, and I am really happy with who I am, with all the challenges in my life, with all the moments that, oh my God, I wish it was different. I'm still grateful to how the universe made me, how God made me, and who I am, and how I think about things, and what I like to do for people, and what I like to do for myself, and the people I care about. And if I changed anything in all those years before, I'm certain that would have a different impact on my life.
And you wouldn't be Saber, right?
You'd be me.
Somebody else. Yeah.
Absolutely. So literally, I would not change. I'm grateful for what happened in my life with all of these challenges.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, and that's in my new book that I'm in the middle of writing. One of the things I mentioned is exactly what you just said, is that every single thing that happens to us, whether within our choice or against our ability or in our choice, it makes you who you are, and it makes you form into the human that you are, right? And you can decide to change something at any moment in your lifetime, right? If you don't like something, you can switch in a second, right? It's just a choice you have to make consciously. But every single choice that you made, whether they were negative or positive, made you to who you are today. And that is so powerful, because each and every single one of us, all 7 billion of us, are amazingly different because of every single thing that happened to us in the past made us into who we are today, which is such a beautiful idea if you think about it.
Absolutely. And if I can go a little further with that, because you said something about negative and positive, and those one of the things that get me rolling.
Okay.
The reason we talk about positive and negative, because we all have filters. So when this conversation between us, when other people listen to it, no two people will hear it the same exact way.
Right. And the whole entire podcast, the whole entire episode will be like that. Everything they
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. No two people will hear the same exact way. Why? Because we take things from with our receptors. So people will see us, people will hear us, and of course they cannot smell us. But based on what they see and what they hear, they will grab that information, they will interpret it their way. And the way, before they store it, they will interpret it that way. And the way they interpret it is based on their own experiences and their own world. And there's
everything they ever did, right?
Exactly. And there's no one experience that is exactly like the other one. Sure. And they store it. After they store it, if they're going to talk about it to somebody else, they will bring it back from that memory. Right. And when they bring it again, it gets filtered again, it gets translated again or interpreted again, so they can say it. And every time they remember it, it gets interpreted slightly differently. So that's why just when we say positive and negative, there's no way. When I heard something from you today, there's no way that I can affirm that it is negative, because those were my filters. That's how I took it. Right. Somebody next to me may not take it that exact way. Mm-hmm. So this goes back to the conversation of truth versus truth with big T, or reality versus reality with big R. What we see and what we think is reality is our own reality, is how we see it.
Our perception of the world.
Exactly. It doesn't mean it is what it is. It's my perception.
Right. And the famous example is the father that's an alcoholic and a drug user, and he has 2 kids. And one of them becomes a drug addict because he blames his father for being a drug addict. And he says, what do you expect from me? You know, that's what I was taught. That's what I was brought up as. And that's what I followed. And the other kid says, I'm going to decide that I'm not going to be like this. And I'm not going to become a drug addict or an alcoholic, because I am making a conscious decision that I'm not going to live the same way my father did. And he taught me how not to live, not how to live, right? And it's just 2 totally different perceptions of how to see something using those lenses that we each have, right? I say there's 7 billion different ways to look at the world, because every single person sees it differently. Right?
Absolutely. And we all do these things, by the way, every day. Mm-hmm. We all do these things every day. So which lens am I going to use today for this specific thing? Yeah. That's a great question.
Yeah, good.
So let us know about your book so we can read it and buy it and say a lot of great things about it.
Yeah, thank you. It's about halfway done, so I'm still
awesome.
Coming up with some good stuff to put in there.
Good.
Okay, good. Last question is, what's the next big thing coming for you?
The next big thing, another book.
Are you in the works?
It is in the works. Yes. It's some of it is what we talked about today. It's not what you do; it's who you are. There's a big thing, if you know Simon Sinek, he talks about start with why. Mm-hmm. To me, start with why, although I wrote a whole chapter about it in the same book that I published in 2015, it is not the beginning of what you want to do. It is the second, at all, of what you want to do. If you don't know who you are, there's no way you can understand why you do what you do. There's no way you can understand the process of what you do, because you drive everything. the difference between a great athlete, an excellent athlete, and the rest of the athletes of the world is not the training, is not the pitch, is not the ball, is not the physique. Is not. Everybody has physique, everybody has coaches, everybody has balls, everybody has pitch. They all have that. The only difference is who they are. That's what they all know, or they think they know why. For example, I take soccer because I'm biased. So if we take soccer, everybody thinks they know why they play soccer. And they have different reasons. Some for the money, some for the fame, some because they love the game. It depends on what their reason is. But until they understand who they truly are as human beings, they will not truly understand why they play the game. And that changes everything to them. That's why you see only one Ronaldo. You don't see 10. You see only one Messi. You don't see 10. You see only one or two amazing coaches that come and go every 5-10 years. You don't see 10. Why? Because they really, really know who they are. And that's the topic of the next project.
That's a good topic to pick.
Okay.
Awesome. Wait, where can people find more about you and your book as well?
Saberwaves.com. The book is not on the site yet because it's in the works and it's a negotiation. But everything else, saberwaves.com. You can type Saber Waves or Saber Waves Coaching on Google. You'll find a plethora of things. And I'd love for you to take advantage actually of what you see on the website or on LinkedIn or anywhere else. I put these things for people to learn from, and I'm hoping that they'll learn from them. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to help.
Awesome. And the book, where can they get the book, or then not yet?
The new book or the old book?
The 2015 book.
That's everywhere on Amazon worldwide.
What's it called?
Lessons from the Vault.
Okay, cool. 7
practices to create reality and live your destiny. I think this is the copy.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Nice to have it on your desk there.
And if you choose, I can send you a link to.
We'll put that in the show notes.
Absolutely,
as well.
Absolutely.
Awesome, incredible. Thanks so much, Saber.
It is my pleasure. Thank you, and I'm hoping it was beneficial to everybody who listens to it.
I hope so.
I hope so.